When he became Prime Minister in May of 1940, Churchill thought it might be too late. And who could blame him? Even a defiant leader like him could see the reality. The Germans had conquered France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark. They had signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, which meant that their conquered lands and alliances would take them all the way from the Atlantic through the Soviet Union to the Pacific and Japan. And what was on the other side but the little British Isles? And of course, great allies in the New World like Canada. But the Americans had not even joined the fight yet. Britain was on the verge of a major evacuation and retreat at Dunkirk. And here, in this city of London, the Germans were aggressing against innocent civilians. Today, I'm standing in Churchill's cabinet war rooms, an underground, bunker-like setting, bomb-resistant, not entirely bomb-proof, but behind me is the cabinet room where the ministers would have met and made their decisions. You can almost imagine these walls vibrating as the German blitzkrieg was pounding the city of London from above. The courageous British people living in this city as German planes flew cruelly overhead with no regard for innocent human life. Meanwhile, nothing but bad news would pour in. Even the American ambassador, Joe Kennedy, would famously have predicted that there was no future for democracy in Britain and that the case to defend the island was growing weaker and weaker. And yet, the people who served with Churchill down here in this incredible bunker, they charged forward, giving courage and encouragement to the population to do the same. The time had come for Churchill to mobilize the English language and send it into battle, in the words of Edward R. Morrow. In fact, he would use his radio broadcasts as a, quote, spearhead of hope for Britain and the world.
Our gratitude to our splendid allies goes forth from all our hearts in this island and throughout the British Empire.
Now the map room. This is where calls would come in indicating what was happening in the battlefields or at seas. Pins and notes would be put up on these maps indicating who was winning and who was losing. All the movements would be demonstrated. One lieutenant said it was heartrending to have to move pins when a ship was sunk as part of a convoy, representing lost lives and a defeat. There might have been other moments of triumph, but this is where it was all recorded and made plain for the eye. If you're ever feeling badly about having an afternoon nap, you shouldn't. Churchill did. He saved Western civilization with a short nap in this bed right here. This was his underground office and bedroom. They called it the number 10 annex. You can almost imagine him reading, studying, planning, barking orders through that telephone, but occasionally recharging with that nap so that he could spring back into action and put in another 8 or 9 hours of work before calling it a night. A man needed his rest in order to move forward into battle. And of course, Churchill had an incredible connection to Canada. He visited our country before and after he became Prime Minister. Most famously, as he had come across the Atlantic to console and mobilize the Americans post Pearl Harbor, he made a decision to go from Washington to Ottawa and give a speech to his Canadian allies. On last-minute notice, just around Christmas, he would arrive, of course, December 30th, forcing members of Parliament to leave their families and hop on trains so that they could gather in Canada's Parliament and hear him speak. He was defiant on that day. He stood before Parliament and talked about how Britain had overcome the odds already, still early in the war. He noted that the Germans believed that they were going to be successful in wringing Britain by the neck. Some chicken, some neck, he said.
Some chicken. Some neck.
His defiance inspired Canadians. And of course, so many of them fought. 1 million Canadians fought. Over 40,000 died, and 50,000 more were injured. It demonstrated again the kind of people that we are as Canadians. We are courageous, determined, loyal, and committed, willing to see through difficult times in order to get through to victory and success. And Winston Churchill understood that it was the courageous common people who would win the wars. It's not just generals and prime ministers, kings and queens, but rather the common people who put down their tools to pick up the arms and fight for their countries. He would go out of this place, the bunker here, and onto the streets of London, where he would talk with the people in the immediate aftermath of the cruel German raids. He'd listen to their stories. And one of my favorite anecdotes of this time was when he and his staff happened upon a lady who was covered in rubble. He helped dig her out, lift her to her feet, and she looked him in the eye and with a quiver in her voice said, "Thank you." Slowly she was helped away, and the anecdote has it that Churchill stood there in cold stone silence with tears running down his face, after which he said, "There goes greatness." A reminder of the great people, the great common people, who defiantly do what's right, defend their country, and as Churchill would say, never give up and never surrender.